Alright, come here. We gotta do the intro. Look at the camera. Look, no? Okay. If there was ever a Bluetooth earbud that made you realize that LDAC, aptX, all your fancy codecs don't mean anything if your fundamental tuning isn't right, then it's this one. We're talking about the Moondrop Space. There's construction, because of course there's construction. This is Dubai. We're talking about the Moondrop Space Travel, and it is interesting. Now, there's two kinds of audiences on this channel. One that knows Moondrop and one that doesn't. The ones that know Moondrop, you're audiophiles, you're degenerates, you watch channels like mine, it's too late for you. The only way out is through. For the other kind of person, the regular consumer, the one that's just leading a normal life and just wants some good value, budget, Bluetooth earbuds, hi. Let me introduce you to Moondrop. They're an audio-focused brand that have done pretty well for themselves these past few years and even have a smartphone. Don't buy the smartphone, trust me. They, at some point last year, decided, hey, let's make a Bluetooth earbud that reminds people what earbuds are actually supposed to do, and let's do that under $50. Heck, let's make it under $40. And that is exactly what they've done. Now, the bulk of this review is going to finish in a minute and a half, because the bulk of this review isn't that important. It's the end, the last bit, the actual sound that makes a difference. So let's just get that part out of the way. Fundamentally, the Moondrop Space Travel has no multipoint. It does not support LDAC or aptX. It doesn't have a great battery life. It's got 4 to 5 hours with ANC on. Yes, it has ANC. It's got a case that's very unique but quite blocky, not the most pocketable thing. The earbuds are stem style. They slide into the case magnetically, which looks cool, but taking it out can be a bit fiddly. You've got to slide it out. It's not the most easy to use, but the earbuds are comfortable. They use touch controls. The top half of the stem is touch control. And that's about it. Not great battery life, not great pocketability, good comfort, but honestly not great mic quality either. I actually shot this entire video on that using the mic and I decided to reshoot it. That's how not great it was. So fundamentally not a particularly great Bluetooth earbud, just interesting. But then we get to the good bit, the sound. Now before we get into the sound quality, let's just talk about noise handling, ANC and transparency. Honestly, transparency is not that great. It's fine. It amplifies the outside sound. Not what I consider great transparency, but I guess it works. Not my favorite. But the ANC on the other hand, whoo, now this got me to do a little bit of a double take. I had to look at the bill again. I had to see how much I paid for it. This is surprisingly good. I'm going to throw up a frequency response for you, my ANC measurement if you will. Lower is better on this graph, and this goes down to about 26 decibels in some parts of the frequency range, which for this price is incredible. Yes, it's a combination of passive noise isolation in the high frequencies, active noise isolation in the low frequencies, and no, it won't compete with something that's $200+ necessarily, but honestly, there are $100 IEMs from really good companies that basically give you the same level of noise reduction. This is $35. This is nuts. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised. Now, sometimes you get a fair bit of white noise in the background, and that's a bit annoying. So it's not always that usable, but more often than not, honestly, for the money, this is surprisingly good noise cancelling. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the sound. Up, up, up. Oh boy. 6. Now, it does come with an app, the Moondrop Link app, and which it has two functionalities. One is customization of touch controls. It's not a very comprehensive set of touch controls, but you can customize it, not bad. But the other is EQ, and you get 3 EQ settings, 3 different tunings, if you will. You get the studio monitor setting, you get the reference setting, and then you get the bass head setting. This is interesting. The studio monitor setting, in my opinion, is the nicest mid-range and top range. So the treble, the mid-range, vocals, all of this sounds really nice, relaxed, but very clear, really smoothly tuned. It just doesn't have as much bass as most people seem to want. So my guess is you're going to want to step up. When you do step up, you have the reference and the bass head, which is basically 2 different levels of bass. Now, the interesting thing is when you increase bass, depending on how you increase it, how much you increase it, generally speaking, you want to increase the 2 to 4 kilohertz region and the treble a little bit to balance it out. And Moondrop, unlike a lot of other brands, know this, so they did this. My only problem, if I were to nitpick here, is that the 2 kilohertz is pushed up a little bit too much. So voices sometimes, if you listen to a podcast, for example, can sound a little bit compressed or crushed and whatnot. But I am nitpicking here because broadly speaking, the reference EQ sounds incredibly smooth. The bass is surprisingly punchy. Surprisingly, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is not going to dethrone a Kiwi ES Quintet or some kind of $200 wired IEM, but for a $35 Bluetooth IEM, I mean, this is how it's done, ladies and gentlemen. Now, a lot of people want to compare with the Harman target, and if you don't know what that is, basically Harman research essentially came up after some research with a tuning signature of sorts that most people seem to want. Not a vast majority, but a majority of people in that study seem to want it. And the problem with that is a lot of us have some very serious issues with that target. This is the problem with Dubai, man. There's just so much construction sound everywhere. Now there's a leaf blower, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4. I can count about 6 or 7 buildings within a kilometer of me being constructed as we speak. So let me try and find something a little bit quieter. Maybe near a hedge like before. Some natural noise reduction there. Okay, it's a little bit quieter here. The sound. Some of us have a problem with the Harman target, right? There are people who like it. There are people who have some specific issues with it. Me personally, I think the treble is too sharp on that, and I'm not the only one. Also, I think the mid-range is too thin because of that dip around 250 Hz, and I'm not the only one. So there are definitely some issues, including some people who say that there's a little bit too much bass there. And the increase in treble is because of, to balance that increase in bass, and it's a bit messy. We've come a long way since that target, and Moondrop knows this, so what do? They eliminated it. It doesn't have that little dip around 250 Hz. It's a nice gradual rise into the bass, but the bass is not so boosted that they had to increase the treble that much to compensate. So the treble isn't all sharp and shouty and Harman. The end result is a very nice, very smooth tuning with great mid-range, a nice amount of bass that hits surprisingly hard and goes pretty deep into the sub-bass, and a general tonal quality that I absolutely like. Now, do the vocals sound a little bit crushed at times in certain conditions? Sure. But, I mean, $35. This is excellent tuning for that. And if you want even more bass still, the bass head option is there, which doesn't add bass to the point of breaking the whole sonic signature, but adds a little meat, adds a little sub bass, and it's fantastic. It's really, really good. And all of this on SBC and AAC. No LDAC, no aptX HD, nothing. So, okay, what do we have here then? We've got a Bluetooth earbud that's not particularly pocketable, but it feels great in the ear. It's got touch controls that are not comprehensive, but they work and they're somewhat customizable. We've got no support for multipoint, no support for LDAC, aptX, any fancy codec, and no fancy features whatsoever, and not particularly great battery life either. You do get 4 to 5 hours of battery, you get about 50% charge in about half an hour, and you get active noise cancellation that is surprisingly good for the money and actually punches above its weight, if I'm being honest. And you get a tuning that makes you remember what's really important. The tuning, not the fancy features, not the fancy codecs, just good tuning, which means you can actually get lost in the music instead of obsessing over the bloody product, which is what we all ultimately want. That's the whole point of this. And if you have friends who don't quite believe you, who don't agree with this stance on high resolution codecs, I'm not saying it don't make a difference. I'm just saying if I were to choose one or the other, it would have to be the tuning. Just spend the $35, get this, put it in their ears, and they will come around to seeing exactly what you mean. And speaking of, I am thinking of giving this away to one of you guys. If you don't know, if you're new, members and Patreons actually get giveaways and extra content, bonus content, extended cuts of these videos. They're all in the member section, so consider it. It's $1 a month or $3 a month if you're feeling generous. And yeah, you'll get enrolled into the giveaway. Hit that subscribe and like button, obviously, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay happy, stay peaceful, stay colorful. Namaste.